Good morning. Welcome back to the Higher Grounds podcast. This is your morning minute meditation for this morning. Let's take our Bibles and go to the book of Ephesians this morning. Ephesians chapter number 2. And I'd like to read all 7 verses this morning, but I know time will not allow us to. So I'm going to read verse 4 this morning, and I give you a thought that comes from these verses here in the text. I want to encourage you, if you haven't studied the book of Ephesians or read the book of Ephesians, I want to encourage you to get into the book of Ephesians. It's a very rich book, wealthy book, and so I want to encourage you to do that. Ephesians chapter number 2, verse number 4. But God, who is rich in mercy, for His great love wherewith He loved us. I want to talk to you about His great love this morning. There's a man by the name of Frederick Lehman. He was a businessman in 1917. He is known for writing the hymn that is in your hymn book, The Love of God. He's a very wealthy man, a businessman, but he lost everything he had, and he was forced to go to work packaging oranges and lemons into wooden crates. Now, despite all the circumstances of things that has transpired in his life, he began to rejoice in his salvation and rejoice in God's great love. And so he begins to write down the first and second verse of that hymn on some paper on those wooden carts there while he was at work. And he began to write the first and the second verse, and he still needed the third verse, and he couldn't come up with a third verse, but he remembered the beautiful words that he heard quoted recently. These are the words he heard. I want to share them with you. Could we with ink the ocean fill, and were the skies of parchment made, where every stalk on earth a quill, and every man a scribe by trade, to write the love of God above would drain the oceans dry, nor could the scrolls contain the whole, though it stretched from sky to sky. These words was considered a Jewish poem, and he often heard these words quoted. What's interesting about these words, the third verse of that song, that hymn, is they found those words sketched on the wall of an unknown patient of a sane asylum, and after they have carried him to the grave. And so this man began to write down these words concerning God's great love. We don't have time this morning, but verse 1, He loved us when we were dead. Verse number 2, He loved us when we were disobedient. Verse number 3, He loved us when we were depraved. When you come to verses number 4 through 7, He loved us when we were delivered. God delivered us, and His deliverance of us from our sin shows us His great love. Christ dying on Calvary was a demonstration of God's love for mankind in their fallen state. So I like what Paul said in Ephesians chapter 2 and verse number 4, His great love.